Mike had always felt a deep connection to nature. The mountains, with their towering peaks and whispering winds, called to him like an old friend. Every weekend, he would lace up his hiking boots, grab his trusty backpack, and set off on new adventures with his loyal dog, Scout, by his side. Scout was a spirited golden retriever, full of energy and enthusiasm, and the two shared an unbreakable bond forged through countless trails and shared experiences. On a crisp autumn morning, the sun peeked over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the landscape. Mike decided it was the perfect day for a hike on one of his favorite trails, a challenging route that wound through dense forests and rocky outcrops. He packed his gear, ensuring he had plenty of water and snacks for both himself and Scout. As he opened the door, Scout bounded out, tail wagging furiously, ready for the adventure ahead. The drive to the trailhead was filled with excitement. Mike turned up the music, singing along as Scout barked in rhythm, his ears flapping in the wind. When they arrived, the air was fresh and invigorating, filled with the earthy scent of pine and damp leaves. Mike took a moment to appreciate the beauty around him, feeling grateful for the opportunity to explore the great outdoors. As they set off on the trail, the world around them transformed into a vibrant tapestry of colors. The leaves were ablaze with shades of red, orange, and yellow, and the sound of crunching foliage underfoot accompanied their every step. Mike felt alive, invigorated by the beauty of nature and the companionship of his furry friend. Scout trotted ahead, occasionally stopping to sniff at interesting scents or chase after a fluttering butterfly. The trail began to steepen, and Mike welcomed the challenge. He loved pushing himself, feeling the burn in his legs as he climbed higher. Scout, ever the enthusiastic companion, kept pace, occasionally looking back to ensure Mike was right behind him. They reached a particularly scenic overlook, where Mike paused to catch his breath and take in the breathtaking view. The valley below stretched out like a patchwork quilt, and he felt a sense of peace wash over him. But as they continued their ascent, the terrain became more rugged. Loose rocks and uneven ground made the path treacherous. Mike was focused on navigating the trail, his mind filled with thoughts of the stunning vista that awaited them at the summit. Just as he was about to take a step onto a rocky ledge, his foot slipped. Time seemed to slow as he lost his balance, tumbling down the slope, the world spinning around him. When he finally came to a stop, pain shot through his leg. He had landed awkwardly, and a sharp ache radiated from his ankle. Dazed, Mike tried to sit up, but the pain was overwhelming. He looked around, disoriented, and saw Scout standing at the edge of the slope, barking anxiously. The loyal dog had followed him down, his eyes wide with concern. "Scout, I'm okay," Mike managed to say, though he knew he wasn't. He tried to move, but the pain intensified, and he realized he couldn't put any weight on his injured leg. Panic began to set in as he assessed his situation. They were miles from the trailhead, and he had no way to call for help. The realization hit him hard. He was stranded. Scout, sensing Mike's distress, rushed to his side, nuzzling him gently. Mike reached out to pet his furry companion, grateful for his presence. "I need you to help me, buddy," he said, his voice shaky. "I need you to go find someone." With a determined look in his eyes, Scout seemed to understand. He stood up, tail wagging, and looked back at Mike, ready to take action. Mike felt a surge of hope. If anyone could find help, it was Scout. "Go, Scout! Find help!" he urged, his voice filled with urgency. Without hesitation, Scout took off down the trail, his instincts kicking in. Mike watched as his loyal friend disappeared into the trees, praying that Scout would find someone soon. Alone and in pain, he took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He knew he had to hold on and trust that Scout would come through for him. As Mike sat on the rocky ground, the reality of his situation began to sink in. The pain in his leg was sharp and unyielding, but he focused on the sound of Scout's paws pounding against the earth as he raced down the trail. "Come on, buddy," Mike whispered to himself, willing Scout to find help. He glanced around, taking in the towering trees and the distant sounds of nature, trying to distract himself from the throbbing pain. Minutes felt like hours as he waited, anxiety creeping in. He knew the trail was popular among hikers, especially on weekends, but he also understood that the deeper they ventured into the mountains, the fewer people there would be. He took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. "You've got this, Scout," he murmured, hoping his words would somehow reach his loyal companion. After what felt like an eternity, Mike heard the distant sound of voices. His heart raced with hope. "Scout!" he called out, straining to hear if his dog was returning. The voices grew louder, and he could make out laughter and chatter. He felt a surge of relief, knowing that help was on the way. Moments later, a group of hikers appeared on the trail, their faces bright with excitement. They were a mix of ages, all clad in hiking gear, and Mike could see that they were enjoying their day in the mountains. But as they approached, their expressions shifted from joy to concern when they spotted Mike sitting on the ground, his leg at an awkward angle. "Hey, are you okay?" one of the hikers called out, rushing forward. Mike could see the worry etched on their faces, and he felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. "I fell and hurt my leg," Mike replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I can't walk." The group quickly gathered around him, assessing the situation. "We need to call for help," another hiker said, pulling out their phone. "Stay with him. We'll get you out of here." As they worked to contact emergency services, Mike felt a sense of relief wash over him. He was no longer alone, and he could see Scout returning, bounding up the trail with a wagging tail. The moment Scout reached Mike, he nuzzled against him as if to say, "I found them." "Good boy, Scout," Mike exclaimed, his heart swelling with pride. The hikers smiled at the sight of the devoted dog, who had played a crucial role in bringing help to his owner. The group quickly assessed Mike's injury, making him as comfortable as possible while they waited for the rescue team. They offered him water and kept him engaged in conversation, helping to distract him from the pain. Mike shared stories of his hiking adventures with Scout, and the hikers listened intently, their camaraderie easing his anxiety. After what felt like a short eternity, the sound of sirens echoed through the trees, and soon a rescue team arrived, equipped with medical supplies and a stretcher. The hikers stepped back, allowing the professionals to take charge. Mike felt a mix of gratitude and relief as they carefully examined his leg and prepared to transport him. "Your dog did a great job," one of the paramedics said, giving Scout a pat on the head. "He's a real hero." Mike smiled, looking down at Scout, who was wagging his tail proudly. "I couldn't have done it without him," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "He stayed by my side and found you." The paramedics worked quickly and efficiently, securing Mike on the stretcher and ensuring he was comfortable. As they began to carry him down the trail, Scout trotted alongside, never leaving Mike's side. The bond between them was palpable, a testament to the loyalty and love that dogs so effortlessly provide. As they made their way back to the trailhead, Mike felt a sense of gratitude for the hikers who had come to his aid and for Scout, who had saved his life. He realized that this experience had deepened their connection, and he vowed to cherish every moment they had together. Once they reached the trailhead, Mike was loaded into an ambulance, and Scout was allowed to ride along, nestled at his feet. The paramedics checked Mike's leg, confirming that he had a fracture but assuring him that it was treatable. As they drove to the hospital, Mike felt a wave of relief wash over him. He was safe, and Scout was right there with him. At the hospital, the doctors examined Mike's injury and discussed the treatment plan. He would need to wear a cast for several weeks, but they assured him that he would heal. As he lay in the hospital bed, he couldn't help but reflect on the day's events. It had started as a simple hike, a chance to enjoy nature and bond with Scout, but it had turned into a life-altering experience. As the doctors worked on his leg, Mike glanced down at Scout, who was lying quietly beside him, his head resting on Mike's lap. The warmth of his dog's presence brought comfort, and Mike felt a surge of gratitude. "You really saved my life today, buddy," he whispered, scratching Scout behind the ears. Scout looked up at him with those big, trusting eyes, as if he understood every word. After a few hours, Mike was discharged with crutches and instructions for recovery. The doctor emphasized the importance of rest and rehabilitation, but Mike felt a sense of determination. He was eager to get back on the trails with Scout, even if it would take some time. Once home, Mike settled into a routine that revolved around healing. He spent his days resting with his leg elevated, but he also made sure to keep Scout engaged. They would sit together on the porch, where Mike would read aloud or share stories about their past adventures. Scout would listen intently, occasionally nudging Mike with his nose, as if encouraging him to hurry up and heal so they could explore again. As the weeks passed, Mike's leg began to heal, and he started physical therapy. Each session was a challenge, but he was motivated by the thought of hiking with Scout again. The bond between them grew even stronger during this time. Scout seemed to sense Mike's progress, celebrating every small victory with enthusiastic tail wags and playful antics. One sunny afternoon, as Mike sat on the porch, he watched Scout chase after a butterfly, his spirit unbroken. It reminded him of the joy they had shared on their hikes. "Soon, buddy," Mike said, a smile spreading across his face. "We'll be back out there together." Finally, after weeks of hard work and dedication, the day came when Mike was cleared to start walking without crutches. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as he took his first steps, Scout by his side, tail wagging in encouragement. With each step, Mike felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was ready to reclaim his love for the outdoors. With his leg finally healed, Mike decided it was time for a celebratory hike. He chose a familiar trail, one that held many cherished memories of adventures with Scout. As they drove to the trailhead, Mike felt a rush of excitement. The sun was shining, and the air was crisp, perfect hiking weather. When they arrived, Mike took a moment to soak in the beauty of the mountains. The vibrant colors of the trees and the sound of rustling leaves filled him with a sense of peace. Scout, sensing the excitement, jumped out of the car, ready to explore. As they set off on the trail, Mike felt a sense of freedom wash over him. Each step was a reminder of how far he had come. Scout bounded ahead, occasionally looking back to check on Mike, his enthusiasm infectious. They navigated the familiar path, and Mike felt a deep sense of gratitude for the bond they shared. Halfway up the trail, they reached a scenic overlook. Mike paused to catch his breath and take in the breathtaking view. The valley below stretched out like a canvas painted with autumn colors, and he felt a sense of accomplishment. "We made it, Scout!" he exclaimed, kneeling down to give his dog a hearty scratch behind the ears. As they stood together, Mike reflected on the journey they had taken. The fall, the injury, and the recovery had all been challenging, but it had also strengthened their bond. Scout had been his lifeline, guiding him through the darkest moments and reminding him of the joy that life could bring. After a few moments of silence, Mike turned to Scout. "You know, I think we should do this more often. Life is too short to stay indoors." Scout barked in agreement, as if he understood every word. With renewed energy, they continued their hike, exploring new paths and enjoying the beauty of nature. Mike felt alive, invigorated by the fresh air and the companionship of his loyal friend. They climbed higher, the trail winding through the trees, and Mike couldn't help but smile at the thought of all the adventures that lay ahead. As they reached the summit, Mike took a moment to appreciate the view. The world stretched out before him, vast and beautiful. He felt a sense of gratitude for the second chance he had been given, not just to hike again, but to truly live. And he knew that he owed it all to Scout, the dog who had saved his life and taught him the true meaning of loyalty and companionship. With a heart full of joy, Mike looked down at Scout, who was panting happily beside him. "Here's to many more adventures, buddy," he said, raising his water bottle in a toast. Scout barked in response, and together they stood at the summit, ready to embrace whatever the future held.